Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. We are thrilled that you could join us this morning for coffee and conversations. We, as usual, have a terrific guest. I'm really excited about today. You're going to be hearing from Mike Carr, who is Director of Operations and Sales as part of Team Damascus. So if you don't know what Damascus is all about, you're about to find out. So with that being said, the protocol is those of you who are on Zoom with us, you can ask questions of the speaker either by typing it in or just asking the speaker directly. If you're on Facebook Live, you type your question in and Tiffany will repeat it to the speaker. So you know who I am. Mike's going to introduce himself in just a little bit, but first of all, we want to find out who all of you are. So Laura, you want to do self-introductions?
Yep, that would be great. Thank you everybody for being with us today. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. So we're going to go around. Please tell me your name and what company you're with. I'm going to have to go through my list today. If I miss anyone, please pop up at the end. So Emily, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Emily Creech. I work with UMCH Family Services. We're a nonprofit agency out of Middletown. We are foster care, adoption, and outpatient mental health services.
Great, glad to have you with us. That's Derek. All right, well, we'll skip Derek for now.
Sorry.
There you
Hi,
go.
I'm
Got
Derek,
it.
Derek Chancellor. I'm the Southwest Ohio Regional Liaison for Lieutenant Governor John Husted. And I recently met with Todd and Christine of Damascus, so excited to see the presentation and learn how the state of Ohio can be helpful.
Great, glad to have you with us today. Jill.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jill Cates. I'm with the Easter Seals Career Connection, which is a grant-provided program through the Workforce Investment Board to help challenged young adults between 16 and 24 get on a career pathway. And some of their barriers do include time in juvenile detention or whatnot, and curious to see what Damascus has to offer.
Great, glad to have you with us. Ben.
Hello there, Ben Cornish with First Financial Bank. I'm a Vice President, Community Outreach and Financial Wellness Specialist right there in Hamilton, our Hamilton location. My role is to be involved in the community, look for opportunities where partnerships are possible, whether it be for a business owner or a nonprofit agency or a business association, and also to help the general public around rebuilding and establishing credit with financial wellness and financial education classes around money concepts and budgeting and money management. So that's my role, Ben Cornish, First Financial Bank.
Great, glad to have you with us today, Ben. All right,
Glad
Deanna.
to be here.
My name is Deanna Cosina, and I'm with ADG Services. We're commercial and residential painting service and commercial cleaning service. And we do employ, we do second chance employment. So I was interested in this, being on this Zoom call, so.
Great, glad to have you with us today. Karen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Wessel. I am with West Karen Enterprises. It's a marketing company, and it is not a social media marketing company. I thrive on shaking hands, writing emails, using the telephone, and all that kind of stuff of one-on-one for a variety of clients. I like to say that I market with personality, your personality, not mine, to get the word out and create a wider customer base for you.
Wonderful, glad to have you with us. And did anybody else pop on here at the end? Nancy, we'll let you go next then.
Sure, I'm Nancy O'Neill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
And Tiffany.
Good morning, I'm Tiffany Grubb with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right, has anybody else popped on that I missed? Nope. All right. I'm going to have to email Sandy. I sent it to her wrong email address, so she may pop on here in a minute. But Mike, we will let you get started.
Great. Thank you very much. Very grateful to have an opportunity to talk about the Damascus model. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, why, I call it my why I'm with Damascus and why I do what I do. And then I'll pivot into the Damascus model, starting from our course curriculum in prison with the ODRC, into our employment partners and our model working with manufacturing, distribution, and warehouse, and then where we're going moving forward into housing and expanding throughout Ohio. So I really appreciate you inviting me to come on. It has been a pleasure working with the Hamilton Chamber. We've done numerous events and we have employer partners in Hamilton, and we're excited to expand our services not only within the Hamilton Chamber's reach, but throughout the state of Ohio. So, what is my why? Well, I've traveled the path from incarceration myself to successful reentry and sustainable employment. Back in February 9th of 2011, I was managing 3 states for an insurance company. Assurant Health in particular was based out of Milwaukee, and I managed Ohio, Indiana, and West Virginia. And after 10 years of sobriety, due to some unresolved trauma in my life, I relapsed and made a very poor, potentially disastrous decision to drink and drive. And I was in Northeast Ohio, in Lake County in particular, during a snowstorm, driving back to my hotel after quite a few drinks, and caused an accident. By the grace of God, the person that I hit in the accident, as well as myself, got away unscathed. However, I was charged, indicted, and ultimately convicted of an aggravated vehicular assault. I was sentenced on December 16th of 2011 after trial, 7 weeks of pre-sentence investigation, and I was looking at 2 to 8 years. The first thing that I want to say is I was, facing what I thought would turn out to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years. The judge, after pre-sentence investigation, sentenced me to the mandatory minimum of 2 years. Once I was incarcerated, was in Lake County for a week, transferred to Lorraine, which is the processing prison in Northern Ohio, at which point 3 weeks later, I was transferred to Richland Correctional Institution, where I spent 2 years. I spent those 2 years unpacking, what brought me to that place, right? What brought me to incarceration. There was about 2,300 inmates at Richland Correctional Institution. It's a level 2, what they call a medium double fence prison, which means they can house lifers in that particular prison. It turned out it was an absolute blessing for me. First and foremost, I'm just so grateful that there wasn't serious injury or death in my accident. I have friends who have died as a result of drunk drivers, and I also know people who have killed others drinking and driving, and that was a very real possibility. And I knew that if I was to be free again and have an opportunity to re-enter society, I really needed to pour myself into every opportunity to really unpack what brought me there, work on the core issues, and that's what I did. And I'm grateful that the ODRC, had some really good programming in prison that I could dive into. And from that experience, really changed my life. I was fortunate to connect, figure out who were the ones that were incarcerated, that had worked on themselves, that were trying to make a difference in others' lives in prison. And it took me about a month or two to really discern where those individuals were and what they were doing. And I'm grateful that I had several mentors that were doing 20 to life, 25 to life, 30 to life, that had spent years unpacking what happened in their lives, had made the appropriate changes, and then were reaching back to help others. And I'm really grateful to those men who had such an impact on my life. So I got involved in every opportunity that was available to me through recovery services, religious services, and special services, which in the ODRC special services would be the mental health component that addresses the incarcerated needs in the institution. I did go through one of the very first trauma classes for men who had been sexually abused as kids, and that's a background in my life, which led to ultimately led to a relapse for me, not addressing some of those issues, which eventually bubbled to the top and led to a relapse for me. So I got involved in that. I got involved with the Incarcerated Veterans of America, which is I was a medic in the U.S. Army Reserves for 6 years. Had my DD-214 set in to the institution and got involved in programming. Through my education at Culver Military Academy, I graduated from Culver Military Academy in 1986. I had LD information sent in to me at the prison, and I started a leadership development curriculum my second year in prison. I first took it to the incarcerated veterans, and then I delivered it to the NAACP, young men who were between the ages of 18 and 24, had never been taught those principles. And I got it approved by the institution. The unit manager provided me the materials once I created the curriculum. And that turned out to be one of the most meaningful experiences of my life, which will tie into some of the curriculum I'm going to talk about with Damascus on bias and things of that nature. But you know, I had such a profound experience over those 2 years, and really changed my outlook on life. I took a deep dive into my trauma, my life, my experiences, and how I can make the appropriate changes to have a meaningful, productive life returning back into society. So once I left Richland Correctional Institution, I served 2 years to the day. I got out December 16th, 2013. Once I was out for a year, I got involved in prison ministry. Once I got off parole, I got involved in prison ministry up at Richland Correctional, where I served my 2 years. Was invited to come up and speak, and I joined the prison ministry team. I really wanted to get involved with reentry somehow, some way. I wasn't sure what that looked like. I volunteered different opportunities when Deanna Hoskins was involved with Hamilton County Reentry Office, and just really was having a hard time finding my fit other than the prison ministry up at Richland Correctional, which I would go up there about twice a year or once every quarter. And I was thinking about doing some sort of meaningful reentry volunteering as opposed to doing it for a living. I just didn't see where I was a fit with my work experience and corporate experience that would be a fit into the reentry world. I had meetings with Talbert House and Lighthouse Youth and Family Services. I have very close friends that are involved in both of those wonderful, outstanding organizations. Just didn't really find a fit. I did meet somebody through an op-ed they wrote in the Cincinnati Enquirer, I think somewhere around 2016. And that's Christine Morallen, who is a founder of Damascus. And her op-ed just it knocked me out. And what she wrote about was an individual that she was working with at Lebanon Correctional. institution, which is a maximum security level 3 prison. And just talking about his background, working with him, where he is today. And Second Chance was kind of woven into that article. And it was such a different approach. It hit me so much that, you know, at the end of an op-ed, there's always somebody's email address. And I just contacted her, and I stuck with it until I eventually, some months later, had a meeting with Christine. And she was wearing 2 hats at the time. She was the director of prison ministry at the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. So working with Lebanon, Warren, and Dayton Correctional Institutions on the religious services programming side of things, which I have a heart for when I was up at Richland Correctional, but also her and her husband, Todd Moralen, had created Damascus, which was an second chance employment organization, and also creating curriculum in prisons. So I did some volunteer work for Christine on the religious services side. At that time, professionally, I had worked for a software company which was owned by Rippey and Kingston. They eventually sold the software. I got back into another tech startup company, in which point I did work for, that company was sold to an organization in Dallas. I didn't want to move, so I stayed here, and I ended up back in the insurance business. I was able to keep my license, my life and health 6 and 63. So I got back into that business with a company called Meridian out of Detroit, which does Medicare Advantage coming into Ohio, helping them implement those products here. They also do Medicaid, primarily in Michigan and other states. So I worked with that organization because of my background in my felony. They hired me as a 1099 as opposed to the director for the state. And I kind of had to prove my salt with them. And I worked for over a year with that organization, bringing the product portfolio in the state of Ohio. I had to compete against some others for the role, and I won the role, but their HR department was unwilling to hire me as a full-time employee. And then at that point, WellCare bought that organization. So I was kind of working and navigating through that. It was super frustrating for me based on my experience, education, and background. I knew I was a tremendous fit. I earned it. I've proven my ability to show up on time and have a great production and experience in helping them develop their portfolio in the state of Ohio, but I was still not given the opportunity to be hired on. At that time, Damascus was starting to grow significantly, and Todd and Christine made a very good offer to bring me on board and help them scale the organization, primarily at that point, focusing on sales. I also do some work in recovery services because I'm very involved in recovery here in Cincinnati, and I have a tremendous connection of personal mentors and professional mentors in recovery services, not only in Cincinnati, but throughout Ohio and the country. So I do a little bit of work on that side. So I was really excited to join Damascus. And why was it so exciting for me? It's because of the model. The model is such that it takes corporate processes, standards, efficiencies, and implementing them into an organization that is servicing not only our employer partners, but the individuals who are returning from prison to provide them a second chance and giving them the support needed, not only to have the impact for the individuals, but also for the companies that we serve. And that mix of the corporate standards and that missionality was, it knocked me out. It was so exciting. I couldn't wait to join the organization. And I've been with them. My start date was February 4th of 2019. So about 3.5 years I've been with Damascus, and that has been super exciting. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing here at Damascus. So again, traveling that path from incarceration, I do want to make another mention about the incarceration piece, that I really love about what Damascus does. And from my personal experience being at Richland Correctional Institution for 2 years, you learn, who the guys are that are, want to change, that, are tired of living the way that they were living and the impact that it had on their lives and their families. And maybe they aren't sure how to do it, but they're out there, they're joining different organizations and getting involved in programming to make a positive impact on their lives, versus ones that are not making those particular changes, that go into the prison culture of criminality. And there's plenty of that in prison, whether it be extortion or dealing drugs or name it. There's all kinds of things that go on, and there are plenty that dive into that piece as well. And what I love about Damascus is, and they're very, very good at it, I should say we, because I'm part of Damascus, is discerning and working with the individuals that have made the changes, that are doing the hard work, that are ready for that second chance. And when you identify those individuals and provide them opportunity and see them flower and grow, and that has a tremendous impact, not only on them, on us, our employer partners, but their families and the community at large. And that's really what we're all about, is bringing this viable model, which starts in prison, but carries forward onto the street, and provides that opportunity. And in the same time, and all the processes and standards that we put in place, it has a tremendous impact with our employer partners as well. And then I'll get into some more detail about that. So you can see that's my prison photo, that lovely beard I had in prison when in Rome. I wasn't going to grow that on the street, but and then to meaningful, successful reentry and sustainable employment. I understand what it's like, even though it may be a little bit different than entry level that we serve. But I was paid coming out of prison less than half my normal wage, what I would usually command based on my experience. And I had to fight my way up to get opportunity. And then once I got the opportunity, I wasn't hired on based on an HR point of view that was really against any kind of risk adverse scenarios, which I would argue that fact. They're actually cutting off their nose to spite their face. But I have had that conversation. I've had that battle. I've come out of the other side of that. So I do know what that's like and what it feels like, although I've had very strong support from friends and family, those in recovery, that helped me get to where I am today. I wasn't able to do it alone. So I want to bring that same support onto individuals and their families who don't have that, with their family and the community, and they're fighting an uphill battle. And I'm really grateful that Todd and Christine have created this amazing model that has had incredible impact, as I've mentioned. So the picture you'll see at the bottom left-hand side, that was the first week back to, with Damascus. And it was a celebratory lunch that we had with, I'll just name it off. You see on the left-hand side, that's Todd Morallen, who's the CEO of Damascus. And Todd's background is with P&G, venture capital with Cincy Tech, got his law degree from the University of Cincinnati while starting Damascus, a very impressive individual. And Christine, who I already mentioned, and her background is head of sales training for USA Today in their heyday. And then on to the prison ministry director for the Archdiocese, adjunct professor at Xavier University in criminal justice. Really awesome background in creating the curriculum, but driving the strategy for Damascus going forward. And then there's me in the green shirt. My dad's from Ireland, so I do have an affinity for green. And then in the center at the time was Senator Bill Seitz, and he's now the House Majority Leader. But the reason he was there He wrote House Bill 86, which is prison reform, parole board reform, sentencing reform. And I got in front of Senator Seitz. I didn't know his political affiliation. I wasn't very familiar with him, but I wanted to find somebody who could help with my mentor in prison, John Harvey, who had been in prison for quite a long time. He should have been released and hadn't been released yet. And gratefully, Senator Seitz, when I presented Johnny's case, agreed that he should have been released and was very integral in helping Johnny, along with others, who eventually got paroled 4.5 years ago. And so kind of moving on from Seitz, there's Rayshawn Holt, who works with Nehemiah and Beacon of Hope. I think now he's with Beacon of Hope full time. Was through Cincinnati Works, and just a tremendous guy. I know Christine and Todd have known him very well for years. I know Rayshawn. He's an amazing individual with an incredible story. And I believe Rayshawn also had a life sentence and ended up serving 15 years and is doing great work. And then John Harvey was my mentor in prison and ended up serving 32 years, 4 months, and 26 days. John has been out 4.5 years. He did go through a Damascus pilot class in Pickaway Institution before he was released. So Johnny had a huge impact, and he's doing great. He's making a huge difference since returning back to society. So as I like to tell now House Majority Leader Seitz, that he backed the right guy, which is really fun. And then on the far right is Dave Logan, who was my personal mentor and was executive director at the Prospect House for 35 years. He just retired last March. So it was a really wonderful celebratory in my first week for Damascus. So it just really kicked off my why. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, which means so much to me. So I want to start off with the model in prison. The why was starting off, but moving next into our why, from why to the model, is our curriculum that we deliver with the Ohio Department of Corrections. We graduated over 400 incarcerated individuals in 6 different security prisons with the graduation rate that averages over 90%. Why is that important? Especially as it relates to maximum security prisons. Well, the normal for programming is 30 to 40% graduation rate in other high security prisons. So that's a significant number. And the only thing that we offer men and women, because we're also in Dayton Correctional, which is the maximum security prison for women, we say, okay, well, you might be able to get a job once you get out. And we don't offer good days, things of that nature. Our secret sauce is the curriculum that Christine designed, which is trauma-based, and the engagement, but also our facilitators are all in. They bring energy, experience, and compassion and knowledge, and the men and women respond to that. And once they start, they graduate, and that's really important. We get into tough stuff. We want to know what brought you there. We want to know what brought you to prison. Okay, we know what's on your jacket, right? We know what has happened as far as your conviction, but what is it that brought you to that place? And that's digging deep, and that's getting into trauma stuff. And in prison, men and women don't share openly about their stuff. That is a culture thing, perceived as a weakness that somebody could take advantage of. But where it comes out initially is in the homework. Okay, it comes out where the facilitator reads, and they have a fair amount of heavy lifting to do, a lot of writing, a lot of homework, as we take them through the process of their lives and trauma. And many come from underserved communities, and kind of bringing them through that, and then recreating or building up the value in their lives and giving them vision and hope for the future. We get into bias as well. We get into a lot of different things to we could go into the hard skills for the workplace, but that's not important in our point of view. Our point of view is we really want to make sure that they have done the hard work on themselves, so they have the opportunity to show up for work every single day. You can be a machinist and a welder and an outstanding maintenance technician, but if you don't have those things that brought you into prison resolved and kind of re-identifying and looking at them and rebuilding you up, then the chances of you reoffending are very high. You're not going to last long in the job. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. So the curriculum matters. It's really important. And we do enjoy delivering this, but not everybody that we put to work has an opportunity to go through our curriculum at some point. We definitely want every man and woman who comes out of incarceration to go through our class. That's Christine's vision. It is her dream. I think it should become a reality because the impact that we'll have on individuals and their families and our employer partners is going to be tremendous. But we're going to continue to fight that battle and grow our curriculum within the ODRC and outside. And Christine is continually working on the curriculum to make it more impactful, to make it more engaging. And I love that piece of it too. So I also have had the opportunity to teach the class in Dayton Correctional Institution for women. I kind of balked at the idea. I should be going into men's prison. I don't know if I should go into women's prisons for obvious reasons, I thought, and it turned out to be one of the great experiences of my life so far. So once, men and women are getting ready to leave and re-enter society, many times they go into a halfway house. It's kind of a step down, a stepping stone to getting to their own apartment, becoming self-sustainable. And that's what we ultimately want, right? We've put over 4,000, I think the number now is almost 4,300. 4,000 returning citizens to work in meaningful jobs throughout Cincinnati and Columbus over the last 7 years. That includes Dayton and Chillicothe. We believe, or we were going to go to Columbus, Akron, Toledo, not Columbus, excuse me, Cleveland, Akron, Toledo, Youngstown, in Northeast Ohio, northern half of Ohio, but COVID slowed us down. So we kind of took that time to refocus, get very focused on our processes just to get better at what we do so we can scale our model efficiently. COVID slowed down a lot of people as it did us, and we have our eyes set on moving north, probably first, second quarter of next year. But being in Cincinnati and Columbus and putting over 4,300 people to work in those markets is an outstanding number. And I want to talk a little bit about the viability of this, because I know we're going to have some people on here that are looking for good quality workers that'll show up every day and do a good job. So I just want to take a moment and focus on that piece. I want to start with one of our core employer partners, which is in the Mason area, kind of between Warren and Butler County. They're right on the edge there, Pioneer Glazing. They have been an employer partner of ours for 5 years now. We celebrated, I think it was in March or April, working with them for 5 years. I know Christine and Todd were hoping to get into them for about a year. They're going back and forth with their CFO. They had 9 staffing agencies trying to meet their workforce solutions, right? They were struggling with labor, and the issue was the staffing agencies were just throwing bodies at jobs, and people weren't converting, they weren't showing up, they were just having major problems. Fortunately, they decided to run a pilot, and brought in Damascus and started with 5 workers. The supervisors, those with the blue shirts, right? Damascus, we like the color blue, and they would come in, and we want 5 more of the guys in blue shirts because they're showing up, they have a positive attitude, they're doing a good job. And then those 5 became 10, those 10 became 15 to 20. I think in the height of their production, we had, I think, 40 or 50, and they went from 9 staffing agencies down to 2, and we were probably 80% or more of all of their staffing needs. And we've been with them since. We can scale up or scale down depending on their production. They're running 3 shifts at one time. They're back down to 2, but they know we're going to do everything we say we're going to do. And what does that mean? Well, we work with organizations like Talbot House and Albus House, and we engage. Our client service representatives are the ones, they're almost like case managers in a way, but we don't like using that term. They meet with the men and women, generally at Talbot House, so they're at Albus House or a halfway house, and then we go through a very intensive process, learning about who they are, what brought them to where they are. We go into a whole bunch of detail, and then not everybody makes the cut, right? And this is where I referenced being in prison and discerning the ones who were working on themselves and walking on the right side, and the ones that were saying all the right things but weren't doing the right things. We're really good and highly trained. Our client service representatives are phenomenal at really discerning those that are ready and then supporting them the right way. And then once they decide, based on multiple visits and interviews and understanding who the individuals are, then we will put them to work at an employer partner that's a good fit. We know our employer partners and companies we work with have different cultures. Not everybody's a fit for a foundry versus a Pioneer versus a ThyssenKrupp versus whatever that looks like. We focus in manufacturing, distribution, and warehouse. So we want to put the right person in the right role in the right location. We want to make sure that they're able to be converted as a full-time employee, no matter what their background is. And it's going to be important for them also to, once they're converted, to be able to get to work as a full-time employee and have that opportunity to be moved up within an organization too. They can get training, they can become a supervisor. If they're showing up and working hard, there's an opportunity for them to move up with an organization. We've had really good success on that route. Our conversion rates, Cincinnati Fan at the highest at 65%. We've put 40 to 50 people to work there. On the lower end, it all depends on location, culture, and things of that matter. It is usually between 40 and 50%. So we do very well on our conversion rates. Because why is that? That's because we spend a lot of time with individuals. We know who we're putting to work, and then we support them the right way through that journey as they're with us as temporary workers. And what does that look like? Well, we provide transportation to and from the workplace. That's a huge piece. The 3 barriers are work, transportation, and housing. So we provide transportation. We're going to get in the housing piece, but our client reps ride the route with them once a week. They show up at the workplace. They bring snacks. They bring their paychecks. We get phone calls at sometimes 2 and 3 in the morning. We help them problem solve when it's dealing with family issues or life issues. It's not referring to when the office is open at 8 or 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. We're literally fielding calls at 11, midnight, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Maybe it's coordinating transportation, things of that nature. When we work with our partners like Talbot and Albus House, it's working with them to understanding the movement, how to get them out at certain times. And we work very well with those organizations. So we put that all into play. And we've had a tremendous impact on our employer partners and bringing people to work to do a good job every single day. The director of the ODRC actually came to Pioneer a few weeks ago to present them with the award because they've put over 600 people to work over that period of time of 5 years, and toured the facility and talked to the individuals. And one of the things that Dave said is, who runs the team of supervisors and have worked with us closely, he said, Damascus always does what they say they're going to do. That means we are there every week. We bring the people we say we're going to bring. And that was really phenomenal to hear from him. So it's been an exciting journey, to grow our organization and meet with employer partners. Not everybody's a fit for us, and we're not a fit for everybody. And I spend a lot of time talking with owners, heads of operations, and heads of HR about what it means to partner with us. We've learned over time there are things that don't make a great fit, but when we come together and there's a full understanding, we're able to implement our model, that we have success every single time. And it's just getting beyond some of the old thinking on the background piece. We understand that if you're near a school, you can't have anybody on the sex registry nationally or in the state of Ohio. That obviously will bind you from doing that. But we don't judge people on their worst day. We judge them based on where they are and they're ready to go to work. Have they done the hard work? They've served their time. They're back in the community. We want to give them an opportunity if they're ready for it, and they get to prove themselves for 90 days. By the time they're getting hired on, you'll know that individual and you'll know if you want them part of your organization. So that's been a tremendous win for us. And it is a viable model. And we've done it time and time again. We have references and referrals that we can give where our model has worked and has an impact on our company and their companies. So our model works, to the date, 340 graduates have returned to society, while only 25 have returned to a new charge. So that's about 11% recidivism rate compared to a state average of over 50% for the level 3 securities. That's where we're taking our class and implementing it and the impact economically. The gentleman who was on with the state of Ohio with Houston's office, I'm sure Christine and Todd took a deep dive into some of these numbers. We track every single thing that we do. So it's really important that if we need to make changes in our model, we could do it to have a bigger impact. This is the corporate processes and experience that we're bringing into the missionality here. We want to have a positive impact into the economy in the state of Ohio. It saves taxpayers millions of dollars if they're not going back to prison. To expand our programming would expand the tax dollar savings. So we're going to expand our model into Northern Ohio and beyond. So we built a software. We're just at the very end of it and going to beta test it here to manage all of our processes, from transportation to the client representatives and the interviewing and tracking the workers and all of our processes internally, to giving access to the workers to information and communication and through an app on their side. So we're taking all of that and we've built Damascus Net, and it's going to enable us to scale and grow efficiently. And that's been a year-long project. I've been working on that intently, and we're at the very end of it, and we're super excited that it's going to give us a really good opportunity to grow. And then I want to talk just briefly and then open it up here as we are getting into the housing. The director of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections has Lebanon Correctional Institution and asked us if we would turn that into transitional housing. So we're at the very end of that piece of it, the contracting piece with the state of Ohio's real estate team, working out the lease components, and hopefully get that done here very soon. I know there's a meeting and a tour there tomorrow with them again. So we're going to turn that into transitional housing. The big question is, how are we going to make that not feel like a prison? Because the honor camp has been sitting empty for 18 months. And we had an opportunity to go to Dayton as well at the honor camp up there. But we're going to start with Lebanon Correctional. We're really excited about that. I think we're looking about a 12-month time frame to turn that into transitional housing. So that's going to be really exciting. And then ultimately, we're going to have a Damascus Village. It's going to be the country's first reentry tiny house community as a housing option for Damascus reentry graduates. And that's going to be probably just down the road. We're working with the state on land acquisition to put that in play as well. So we're working on that piece, and that's probably a 3-year project on that side. And what are we doing? You know, we're very serious about doing this the right way. We applied for the Stanford University Institute of Design. There were over 200 applicants. I know Christine told me it's about 225 applicants around the world, and they only accepted 9. And we went through a very intensive 4-month class, which took up a lot of our time, but we were super focused on making sure that we're going to be implementing this Damascus House, reinstituting Lebanon Correctional Institution and the Damascus Village, and working with our employer partners and how that all comes together and make sure we're doing it right. So we did do that, and it was a great experience for us, and we're going to be implementing that going forward. So thank you so much. You know, social justice, economic impacts, lower recidivism. That's what we're doing here. I'm really excited to be a part of this team, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions.
I don't have a question, but I have a statement. You know, I think the interesting thing is, which I know is the basis of your program, as you described, is, you know, I'm no expert, but from what I understand, most of the programs in prisons are focused on some kind of training, some kind of learn a skill, you know, get a certificate or a badge or something. So when you come out that you can, you know, get a job, supposedly. But, you know, they don't deal with the inner person that put them there in the first place. And they expect them just to kind of get out and get back with society, get a job, and life goes on like nothing happened. So, you know, kudos to you guys for really going back and doing the hard work that makes, you know, helps them understand, you know, how they got off track to begin with.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you, Mike.
Sure.
Do you know Chandrita Boyko or Vernice Robinson?
I do not.
Okay, I'm going to make sure you get introduced to them. Vernice handles all of the programming for the state of Ohio for people coming out of incarceration. And Chandrita handles all of the funding for those programs, including funding streams to start a business, for reentry citizens and all that kind of stuff. So I will do, I've been talking to them lately. They were in my office last week, and I will introduce you guys. You're going to see both of them on a future coffee and conversation. And Laura, I remembered who I talked to. So
well, thank you very much, Dan. Christine may know who they are. That's definitely her lane. My question is, are they with the ODRC or are they with the state of Ohio?
They're with the state of Ohio.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's interesting, you know, to me, it's kind of interesting, and I will include Christine in that introduction, but it's interesting, all of these departments that exist and everybody that should know each other, but they don't necessarily, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And I'm sure Christine does. I just don't, because I'm not in that side of things. I've facilitated, but when it comes to working with the director and others within the ODRC, Christine has almost 20 years of experience doing that. So she is the one who drives that piece of it. Any questions that relates to our employer partner model, our staffing model?
Mike, could you explain, because I know from a business perspective, one of the challenges, you know, is we try to promote reentry workers as a viable workforce that I would like more of our businesses and members to tie into. Could you explain a little bit more in depth about, how you might assist in removing the risk and the fear that they have? Because that is what I hear all the time is, we can't do that. We don't have the resources. We don't have the people. And, I can't have somebody come in and, be shooting up my workplace, which is exactly what they say. So that piece, and also why it's important to have, I would call it, might not be an appropriate term, but a felon-friendly employer situation so that, once the worker does get there, they can be successful. So those two questions.
Okay, so the viability in the two parts. So education is a big part of it. And when I talk about education, it isn't necessarily our curriculum. What I'm talking about is educating our employer partners. So one of the things that we do is we will provide training for leadership with our employer partners, as well as the supervisors that have the daily impact and connection with our workforce, and educate them about the population, about individuals who have gone through incarceration, and that awareness and that education, or even providing some examples, is tremendous for us to provide to our employer partners. So we start there. So when we're onboarding a new company, Christine and Carly and some others within our organization will come in and they will train our employer partners in what to expect and what exactly is that we do, and they'll deep dive into what it looks like to work with second chance individuals, those that are formerly incarcerated. So that is really important, and it's a huge piece that we offer when we're onboarding individuals. The other piece, the viability and making sure that we're bringing people that are ready. When I get pushback on one of the questions I'll get is, well, we don't want anybody with a violent offense. Well, okay. Well, what does that mean exactly? The violent offense it's a very broad brush, right? And some of our best, like John Harvey, my mentor in prison, did 32 years, 4 months, and 26 days. And he was doing 20 to life, actually was 15 to life on the second-degree murder charge. When you look under the hood of his case and learn about him and learn about his story and learn about everything that he had done in prison and changing his life around, and the clear person that he'd become over a long period of time in prison, why would you not bring potentially your best employee because something they had done 32 years earlier, which necessarily doesn't match up with what exactly happened? So we're really good at discerning, the individual, the background, what happened, where they're at now, all the work they've done subsequently. And in doing all of that heavy lifting and work, is a protection for our employer partners. We're just not throwing somebody at the job. That's where you're going to potentially have problems. And companies that are very well-meaning have tried to implement second chance culture and opportunities. They just don't have the background and experience that we have, that are very good at discerning and filtering down to the individuals that are ready for an opportunity for work. In all the years that we've been going for 7 years, we haven't had violence in the workplace. Okay, that's probably because of all the intensive work that we do, making sure we're bringing those that have worked on themselves, that are doing the right things, and so forth. We also support individuals through their temporary staffing with us over the 90 days. There's constant contact. We know what's going on in their world. We know what's happening with their families. And that builds trust with the individuals. We also work with our employer partners. If there's any problem solving that needs to happen, and we get to know the supervisors or the manager of the supervisors like Dave. When we had our meeting with the ODRC director a few weeks back, when they came down to give the award to Pioneer, there were 8 supervisors in the room. All had worked with our Damascus workers intensely over, a 5-year period. And to hear them tell the stories and then how we interact and work with them. And the end result was they had production being met, and they were getting individuals that were showing up every single day. So, there should not, it's a stigma, right? People make mistakes. People have experiences in poverty and trauma and abuse that brings them, to making really bad decisions that take them to prison. What we do is we help them, and hopefully they've done some of the work on themselves in that journey, and we'll be part of that solution. But giving them to the other side of that, and then giving them a chance once they've done the work. So all of that put together really could potentially give you your best employee. Johnny likes to tell this story. He works for a company north of Columbus, and it's a construction company. And the owner of the company said, "Johnny, I need 20 more of you guys. Where can I get them?" And he said, "They're all, I know where they are. I just need to go get them out." Well, what Johnny means by that is, we know who the men and women are that have done the hard work and they're ready for that second chance. And that Damascus brings that to the table, and the support going forward. And what our employer partners get is, an opportunity to fold people within their organization that they otherwise wouldn't have. Does that answer some of that for you, Dan?
Yes, thanks, Mike. I had myself on mute, sorry.
All right. Any other questions for Mike today? Mike, would you share with us your contact information? So if someone's watching this later, what is the best way to get in contact with you if they have some questions?
Yes. So, of course, you got a dark screen here?
Yes.
Okay. So since I don't have it up here, my information is email address, Mike, MIKE .CARR at teamdamascus.com. That's TEAMDAMASCUS.com. That's Mike.Carr with 2 R's at teamdamascus.com. And my phone number, best way to reach me is always my cell phone. It's 513-253-1477. Again, that's 513-253-1477.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for being with us today. Some very informative information. People can be watching this on Facebook later. We'll have it posted on YouTube. Our next coffee will be Tuesday, July 26th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. here on Zoom again. So please join us. We're still solidifying a fabulous speaker for that day. So be sure to check online at hamilton-ohio.com to see what we have on the schedule. Again, Mike, thank you so much for being with us. And we will see.
Thank you very much. It was an honor and a privilege.
Good. Thank you. And we'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.